everyone, it's Vince signing in again, and welcome back to Random Possible Critiques. My reading of Sonic.Exe, the remake. I don't know why I call it Random Possible Critiques, because this isn't random. I chose to read this, but whatever. That's the name of the thing, and that's easier to put in the playlist. This is taking place. I'm recording this a day later. I'll probably believe. I don't know when I'm gonna release it, but I'm gonna put it up and basically whenever I feel like releasing it, I'm gonna put it out. But let's not dilly dally. Let's get right into the meat of things. Uh, Last time we left off, Tom had completely forgone actually contacting his friend, ignoring any sense of common sense or concern that he may have had, and just decided to let him stew in his room for 3 weeks straight with no one contacting him or talking to him or talking about him. He didn't bother going to check with his teachers or his other friends to see if they knew where he was, because apparently disappearing for 13 for about 3 weeks without going to class in college is just a normal occurrence for anyone else. Didn't even bother to leave a note. That's it's kind of typically like, it's just another Tuesday here. But whatever. After that, he received a package in the mail, or received a package after he went down to check on his friend finally, and that's where the dreaded game is. So we're gonna see if anything becomes a little bit more spooky now. It didn't have a side. It didn't have a side that had a cover describing the game. You could have just said there was no description of the game or anything. I don't know. On both sides, it was just that reflective plastic side, except upon closer examination, Tom could faintly see lines faded into both sides. Under the right light, under the right light, one could see that these four thick, slightly dark lines from went from the side to the disc to the center. They were faint, barely noticeable, but Tom saw them. It wasn't like someone drew these lines with a marker or carved them into the plastic of the disc. If anything, it looked like the disc was naturally made with this design. The way that they were positioned, it came together in the center of the disc before being cut off by the hole. It made it look like there was an X on the CD. An X, Tom thought. With a scoff, he put the disc down. He was sure that Tom was just he was sure that Kyle was just pulling some kind of prank on him. Whatever this disc is, it probably didn't even work. Whatever it was, you mean? I don't know. Tom felt angry. For 3 weeks, Kyle hadn't spoken to him, and now he wanted him to play this game disc that most likely didn't and couldn't even do anything. Fuck you, man. Tom said to himself. Fuck you! Your friend's been missing for 3 weeks, and you've gotten like one letter, or rather one word, or one or two word replies, which is highly suspicious to me. He hasn't even called you, mostly in the form of text messages. I'd be highly concerned if a friend of mine my best friend, went missing for 3 weeks, and I didn't get nothing that amounted to something resembling any form of basic correspondence from him. Uh, Crumpling the letter up and throwing it away, leaving the disc on the table as he went to go take a shower. Suffice to say, he was at his limit with Kyle now. And why not? Kyle was practically being unreasonable with him, wasn't he? He's being unreasonable because you won't take the time to you didn't take the time to actually contact him. Not speaking to him or anyone else for a matter of weeks, and now this. He couldn't even talk to Tom himself if he really wanted to play a so-called great game. Nope, Tom wasn't going to play along with this. Not this time. These thoughts buzzed around Tom's head as the hot water washed him. Never had he felt so angered and betrayed by his own friend. Okay, it's in terms of in your mind, this is just some form of validation that he is fine. And what betrayal are you talking about? What connection do you two have? You didn't have that much of a connection to him enough to go check on him when he was been gone for an extended period of time. Like throughout the 3 weeks that was happening, your only means of communicating with him or going to see if he was okay was to fucking text him when he literally lives beneath you. And like it doesn't that doesn't seem like the most close relationship when you're not even prioritizing your friend's potential like any safety risk that might come to him. And then this guy has the audacity, like, look, I've been gone for some time, I'm sorry, oh, by the way, here's this game I like. I mean, it's kind of rude. It's a little bit rude, a bit standoffish at the very least, but it's not not a betrayal. What is this bullshit? Yeah, like in JC the Hyena's attempts to make a more grounded character, he's managed to make him even more unlikable. That's amazing. By his own friend, but the anger soon subsided after a while of water, before being replaced by a new feeling, concern, a feeling that had to just manage to surface through all the bullshit. After I just said you didn't visit him for 3 weeks. The more he thought about it, Tom began to realize the strangeness of it all. He had known Kyle personally for years. For as long as Tom remembered, Kyle was almost never busy for him. What? You're never too busy for him? Never busy for him? Okay. Um, Practically hung out with him with every chance he got. The first week he should have was gone. You should have suspected something. So it is entirely within Kyle's character to stick around with you and like mingle with you, and he's been gone and quiet for this amount of time, and you didn't see anything suspicious with it until now. The fuck is wrong with you? The idea of Kyle being too busy for anything outside of his dorm starting to sound more ridiculous, let alone being too busy for his friends. More concerning thoughts began popping up, as Tom said as he in Tom's head as he began watching himself. Continued watching himself. What if something really was keeping Kyle busy? What if he was studying for extra credit? Tom corrected himself, as he knew Kyle wasn't exactly an ambitious student, so it couldn't possibly be for that reason. Maybe Kyle had family problems? While it seemed more likely than extra credit, that also couldn't be the case, as Kyle never did seem to have a close relationship with his own folks, at least not enough to leave college and help him out. Maybe he was seeing someone? A date, perhaps? A 3 week date. I'm just weird phrasing. I get the idea is that he's been more preoccupied with uh, his new girlfriend or whatever, and that's probably what your idea was. But it sounds like you're saying that he went on a 3 week date. Tom never bothered to look into Kyle's personal life, but he'd be amazing if Kyle actually did find love. Not like Tom. He's tall, handsome, he gets good grades, and he has a few friends. Darker thoughts began to appear in Tom's mind the more he thought about it. Did something happen to Kyle? Happen to Did something happen to Kyle? No, that couldn't be the case. If he was found in a ditch somewhere, he would have at least hit the news. There are cases of people disappearing almost all the time in this country, and a fair amount of it doesn't get reported on. There have been instances where people find dead bodies stuffed in mattresses that have been gone for months or sometimes even years at a time. There's been one instance in particular where the hotel running the water in a motel, I think it was a hotel, excuse me, and it was sour, and they found out that there was a dead body in the fucking cooler. So shit like this happens more often than it really should. And so this guy disappearing and not appearing on the news is not an inclination that there isn't something up. Like, oh, well, obviously he can't be in trouble because he would have been on the news. It doesn't work. Life doesn't work that way. And who do you, like, if you found in a ditch, like, he could still have been killed. Like, someone might not have found the body yet. Like, this guy's deductive reasoning is very poor. It's a good thing that the detectives are going to come later on in the comic to solve all this bullshit. Let me see, still, the idea that something happened to Kyle lingered in Tom's mind. He remembered the letter that came with the disc. As he dried himself off, he began to realize how weird it all was. The way that it was written seemed off. It was like Kyle had completely lost his mind as he wrote it. The way he kept going on about how great the game was and how jittery the handwriting seemed. Tom thought he was going around. Tom, thought about going around campus to ask anybody who knew Kyle if he noticed if he was being strange 3 weeks prior. Again, something that you should have done the first week or even a few days into him not being around you. He decided against this. He began to consider the possibility of getting no leads out of it. If okay, Kyle wasn't exactly Mr. Popular at college. Hell, he didn't even gain any notoriety in high school. It doesn't matter if people are at the very least peripherally aware of them. Back when I was in high school, like people don't know me, but a fair amount of people who are peripherally aware of me could probably pick me out of a crowd. It's like, oh, there's that guy. Like they could discern whether or not my behavior was strange based on like lingering glances. That's basic human behavior. You could like there is a 25% chance that you might get a lead on where Kyle is. So why aren't you going to take the chance? Like, where's the harm in asking someone if if you've been around campus or your friend's been around campus? Like, is what detriment would that provide? Would that put forward when it comes to finding Kyle? How would that hinder you at all if you don't get a leader at all? It's not like there's a risk factor to asking people if they've seen your friend. Ugh. The next day, Tom sat in his dorm room thinking about what could have happened to Kyle. However, all thoughts about the letter and Kyle's disappearance went to the wayside as Tom heard a knock on the door. Thinking it might have been one of his friends, he walked to the door and opened it. It wasn't one of his friends. Uh, it was a man, an average size, somewhat lanky looking man, somewhere in his late 20s. He had brown, untidy comb over and a 5 o'clock shadow and wore an open suit jacket, white shirt, green necktie, and hands in his pockets, looking a bit disgruntled. The man looked at Tom and spoke. Thomas Miller. One quick thing. And this, I'm not singling out Jason Diani, and because I'm very much guilty of this in some of the works I've written myself. When it comes to describing a person's characteristics, when you tend to do that, I don't know how to really explain this. Describing a person's characteristics in a story is there's a method in which you can do it that makes it like this comes off as very expository. So just expository. Like he wants you to remember what the characters look like in case you want to draw fan art. And I'm not shitting on JC Aina for that. I don't really care all that much, but like you look at someone like Stephen King or Lovecraftian horror or Clive Barker, and when they describe someone's physical attributes, they do it in such a way that really draws the reader's attention to it, so they could do their best to paint like a visual image. They're not doing it. When they do that, they want you to really visualize what this person looks like, and I guess in a way visualize yourself like being in the presence of that person, so it becomes more realistic in your mind. Um, I would say a little bit more detail is a bit warranted. Maybe, no, not even detail, just more of a flourish to the writing to really bring the character to life and to really make you remember him. When you kind of just explain, like, say what he looks like in a flat manner, like here, he's like, oh, he looks like this. He has 5 o'clock shadow, open suit jacket, green necktie. Like, I don't know how I would describe going about doing it. I wouldn't consider myself an expert on literature or writing practices in any way, but it's something that I notice when it comes to certain people trying to introduce a character and describe what they look like. When you do it in such a blasé manner, it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. Like Laughing Jack had that problem too. When he kind of when the characters describe the appearance of Laughing Jack, when the fucking in the original story where the little kid describes Laughing Jack, and he does it in such a very uh, expository way that it comes off as unrealistic that a child would recount how he looks in such a in a very, I don't know how to say it, monotonous manner, I would say. Uh, but again, that's not reserved for JC the Hyena. He's not the only person guilty of that. I readily admit that I do that a lot myself, and it's something that I think people are best for them to break out of. The man looked at Tom and then spoke. Thomas Miller? Tom hesitated and responded. Most people call me Tom, but yes? The man then pulled out what Tom could identify as a detective's badge. Are there really detectives badges out there? Do detectives have badges? Like, I'm thinking of private investigators. I think detectives do have badges. Um, I think you have some kind of some kind of permit if you're a private detective, private investigator. No, whatever. You're getting pedantic now. The man pulled out what Tom could identify as a detective's badge. Derek Green, Detective Derek Green, City Precinct. Uh, Precinct. Are you friends with with one Kyle Scott? Tom froze, his concerns beginning to resurface. Kyle? Yeah, I am. The detective sighed and bit his lip as he was trying to find the right way to say something to Tom. What is it? You keep saying their name like we know who he's addressing, so it's kind of unnecessary. Look, it's probably best if you come with me. With that, a very confused Tom followed Detective Green down the hall. So, how long have you known Kyle, Tom? Green asked. Since high school. Without even looking at Tom, Green then asked, and when was the last time you spoke with him? Tom was growing more worried and concerned. I don't know, like something's wrong with my eyes, I guess, or maybe there's something on the screen because I saw the word worried and like I thought it read like Tom was growing more woman. Like the death of my potential death of my friend has gotten me in touch with my feminine side. I'm sorry. Almost 3 weeks, sir. Listen, what's going on? To quote, I think it was John Mulaney when he was talking about Law and Order SVU. There's always those specific characters you see who the detectives are investigating or talking to. And it's like, Tony Ramirez? Yeah, I know him. He was a real quiet guy. Why? Did someone happen to him? He was like, yes, dude, something did happen to him. That's why you're being talked to by the murder police. Like, what other reason would homicide detectives come and talk to you for? Obviously, very confused. That's cool. Why? What's going on? How many pages has it been? I don't know. Like, I will say this. Like, as I'm reading it now, this isn't really quite feeling. This portion I'm reading right now isn't feeling its length so far. Green pulled out a small book and started writing it into it as he continued down the hall. As he did so, he continued to speak with Tom. We had a call not too long ago about an unsanitary odor that was coming from dorm room 231, Kyle Scott's dorm room. Why did they call a detective? I mean, the police will come by themselves and investigate. Like, there was no reason to bring a detective. A detective goes to investigate and question people, but I don't think I don't know. The door was locked from the inside, so somebody had to bust down the door to see what was causing the smell. Wait, how, how did Tom not smell it? Because they're saying that it was an unsanitary odor. Why? How did Tom not catch a wind of it as he was downstairs? Or was the door? Wait, did they close the door? Like, okay, when did this? Okay, he went to check the disc, took a shower, so that would probably be like, depending on how long he showers, maybe like 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 30, 20, 10 minutes, maybe even an hour if he's one of those people, assholes who like to stay in the shower or whatever. Okay, so he takes that long amount of time, and it takes that amount of time for the police to come and investigate this and then go question him. So that means that the body was still there and it was still fresh. So how did Tom miss it? Okay, to speak to Tom, he had he had a call not long ago about an unsanitary odor. Okay, so somebody had to bust down the door to see what was causing the smell. As they went downstairs, Tom asked rather reluctantly, And why did you come to me about it? Green then spoke more grimly, more hesitantly. Well, you're his best friend, and it's probably for you to see. But it doesn't work that way. They would contact his family first. They wouldn't give a shit about him being a friend. They would question him to see like his mental state. I would suppose, to see if he has anything to do with his death. But I don't think they would like oh you're his BFF, so we must include you in this investigation, whether or not you have any information as to what happened to him. I mean, it makes sense in that, technically speaking, Tom was the last person he contacted. But from what we see in this little exposition bit, uh, Tom Green, like, Tom Green, Mr. Green from Mr. Green's butcher shop doesn't know that. He doesn't know that Kyle was the first person, that Tom was the first person, last person Kyle spoke to. Let's see. By the time they reached the corridor that had Kyle's door. Kyle, Tom could see several police officers, students, and a few reporters. He's with me, Green said to a couple cops. They headed towards Kyle's door. Sure enough, it was busted open. Inside, Tom saw a very unsettling sight. Again, how did Tom miss this? How did he? Wait, police and reporters? All of them. Okay, they had to all come simultaneously, unless Tom takes the longest fucking showers in the world. There's nothing up there, back up there, to indicate that it took like there was several days later. And again, that means that his body was rotting away for weeks, and Tom didn't think to do anything about it. I'm not saying that he's responsible for his friend being dead. I'm saying he's a fucking moron who couldn't understand that this sudden shift in behavior and his sudden disappearance is something that he should be concerned with. By the time they reached, okay, well, Kyle's dorm room was a mess. Like it hadn't been taken care of in weeks. It was dark and several pieces of furniture had been knocked over. Mold was growing in some areas, and food in the fridge was rotting terribly. Over 3 weeks? If the electricity shut off, I suppose, but I can't remember who was that told me that story about coming back to their dorm and finding like a rotted cake there, or is that a story I heard on? No, that was a story I think I heard on the internet, on the YouTube. Never mind. Um, Food in the fridge was rotting terribly, and overall the room just stank something awful. Tom could spot Kyle's computer sitting on his desk, open, turned off, and a screen cracked. The photographer was taking pictures of the whole scene, and two other people were managing a gurney that had the body laying on it. A straight sheet completely covered over the body. Tom's blood ran cold when he saw the body on the gurney. Green himself walked over it, topping the two men and carrying it to show Tom. Why would he need to show him it? What relevancy does it have? He could just recount what he looked like later on, so he wouldn't have to scar this motherfucker for life. And how would it be at all necessary for Tom to see what his dead friend looks like? It's like, oh well, he's in this position that's very abnormal, and we don't know what's up. Can you solve this, complete stranger? What the fuck? Laying on a white sheet, covered the body, dreading upon dread. Wait, he stared at the covered body, dreading upon dread what could be under that sheet. Green looked at Tom's face with unease within himself. He flipped the sheet and revealed the corpse that stared mindlessly back at Tom. The skin was pale, eyes white, foggy. The short hair was unkempt, blood-stained, mouth agape, and his jawbones had been snapped off. Again, why does Tom need to see this? If their intention is to question Tom because he's the last person that Kyle talked to, why? This is really unnecessary and only serves to traumatize the motherfucker for life. I mean, I don't care about Tom. I think he deserves to be traumatized for life for being a fucking wingnut who thought it was completely fine to ignore his best friend for 3 weeks when all the signs were pointing to the fact that he needed help or something was wrong. But again, this is just really stupid. You're trying to ground us in reality, and people are acting like absolute morons right now. It was Kyle. Chapter. Let me see. What page am I on now? Okay, I'm on chapter 9. I'm sticking to what I said before. Uh, 5 chapters each for each video. So I'm gonna try to stop bloviating and skim through these videos. I skimmed through this shock. That was all Tom felt as he sat in the quiet interrogation room alone, numb with shock. He sat there in silence. His mind tried to reel back and remember what happened more than an hour ago. I don't know, like, to me, don't you think it would have been a better, a more endearing moment for Tom, where his concern for his friend is so overwhelming. He goes downstairs, smells a putrid, horrible stench. Okay, maybe this. Okay. He hasn't seen his friend for 3 weeks. Those things we can ignore all that, even though that's a warning sign of itself. He finally gets correspondence. The correspondence comes first in the form of the package. He sees it and sees the hastened handwriting and everything in the fucking disc, and he's all like, "Oh well, this is fucked." That's what prompts him to go down and check on his friend. He smells the horrible stench right away, and he kicks the door down, and he stumbles upon this site and sees his friend completely frozen and dead in that stupid rip-off ring pose. So he's the one that contacts the police, and naturally they're gonna bring him into interrogation because he's the last person that saw him dead, and he was the last person that Kyle talked to. That sequence of events would make much more sense and would do much more to endear us to Tom's character, because him kicking down the door because he's worried about his friend is a natural gut response that's based in reality, and we could see ourselves either doing that or relating to him for choosing to do that. And here it's just like he was completely ignorant, and then these guys detective shows up, and for no other reason besides, well, you're his BFF, let's just shove you into this investigation. And again, unless it shows later on that this isn't the case, they don't know that Tom was the last person Kyle talked to. So they just decided to ring him in, like just bring him into this bullshit with no reason whatsoever, for no reason. Oh, how did they even know he was his BFF? Unless they talked to his friends, but in which case his friends would probably call him in advance, like, "Hey, detectives are coming. They asked about Kyle." Like, I don't know. This is fucking bizarre. Look, I'm living in fairy fucking wonderland. A detective named Green had visited him. He brought him into Kyle's room, which the cops had to break into, and turned out to be completely derelict for 3 weeks. And Tom, had seen, he, wait, and Tom, had seen what had become of his friend Kyle. He could still vividly remember the look of horror upon his face, jaw hanging uselessly from its sockets. Jaw sockets, huh? Jaw hanging uselessly from its sockets, as his eyes wide, dead and empty. Excuse me. After that, he was brought to the police station by Detective Green, who told him to wait in the interrogation room, promising him that he wasn't in any kind of trouble. Tom had been sitting in his dark, quiet room, looking at the polished table ever since. He still couldn't register what he had seen. Still couldn't register what he had seen, what felt like minutes ago. How did he not see the signs? How did he not consider the possibility that his own friend had been dead for 3 weeks? He believed, he hoped, that Kyle was merely busy, that something was keeping him up, and that he had to cut classes in order to deal with it. But no, Kyle wasn't busy at all. He was dead. I can't get over this fact. Like, you just had to contact the asshole, but you didn't. like contact him by calling him, or or kick open his door himself. Why is Kyle here? Why is Tom here? Really? Please tell me that they actually know that he was the last person he talked to, because if so, this is really stupid. Tom snapped into his out of his increasing depression as he saw the door open. Detective Ream walked into the room carrying a cup of coffee. Following behind him was a dark-haired woman that looked younger than Green, wearing hot pink vest over her white button T-shirt. No, she wasn't. I'm more than certain that she had. If she's working for the police station, there are some form of uniformity that's required. That whatever. Dark blue jeans. Green gave the coffee to Tom. Here, you look like you use a pick me up after we showed you your friend's desiccated corpse. It's fucking forced you to see the dilapidated remains and his horrified expression for no reason because, well, coffee solves everything. As Tom took Folgers sucks, by the way. No, not Folgers isn't that good, but I hate Maxwell House. I despise Maxwell House. I got my mom to stop drinking it finally because I kept saying that it tastes like ass, and I get exposure to better brands. He and the woman sat down. He and the woman sat down with him, Green across from him and the woman beside him. All right, introductions. Tom, this is my sister Sarah. Tom paused as he shook the woman's hand. She's part of the investigation I'm working on. A pleasure to meet you, Tom, Sarah Green said. And with a tone of warm concern, she said, "Are you feeling okay?" Tom couldn't respond. He felt his face heat up. Where is it? He felt his face heat up while he looked at his coffee cup. I'm hoping that's because of the coffee and not from him fucking blushing from being talked to by Sarah. Because I know fucking Jason Diane is a bit of a very notorious kind of weeb that likes to introduce anime bullshit into his story. Whatever. Tom couldn't respond. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about what happened to your friend, Tom. Sarah gave her condolences, putting a hand on Tom's shoulder. We both are, honestly, Derek responded. Now listen, Tom. The reason that you're here isn't because you're in trouble. We don't suspect you had anything to do with what happened to Kyle, so you don't have to worry. We do, however, require your help. My help? Tom said quietly, shakingly, his not taking his off his cup. He felt grief. Felt his grief just starting to spill out. My friend's dead. He's fucking dead. And he felt his eyes welling up, his voice breaking. I had no idea. Nor did I do anything to help him. Okay, if you're fucking torn up and inconsolable, no one says nor naturally. I had no idea. Nor could I help him. No, you won't hear that. I'm sorry. Unless you're, I don't know, on the shittier episodes of Law and Order SVU. I could not help my friend, nor could I assist his loved ones. I should have read the signs. Let me see, how many pages am I on? Page 10? Okay, this is the last page I'm reading for now. Let's finish this up. I should have read the signs the minute he stopped responding to my calls. I should have been there. I should have done something. Wait, what am I blocking? What is my stupid big piece of shit? I should have. Oh, sorry. I should have fucking done something. He wiped his eyes, sniffing. Sarah handed him a box of tissues, what he took a couple from. Now, Tom, this isn't your fault. I mean, we kind of dragged you into this to begin with. Although, why did you wait 3 weeks? What the fuck's wrong with you? I mean, there isn't much. I get like here is that it's supposed to be highlighting the fact that yeah, Tom was pretty stupid for not checking in on him when he wouldn't respond to his calls and was acting kind of really out of character. But the thing is, me as the reader, I can't sympathize with Tom because in this situation, I would not. act this way. I would not do that. I wouldn't ignore my best friend for 3 weeks just assuming that he's okay when he's really acting out of character. Now, Tom, this isn't your fault, Director Sherm. I mean, there wasn't really much anything you or anyone else could have done. You're not at fault here. I promise you. If anyone should be guilty of feel guilt should be guilty of this, it's whoever killed your friend. Well, yeah. Tom asked quietly. Who want to kill quiet? Who want to kill Kyle? I mean, yeah, he was a bit of a reckless prick. I even poked fun at it with him, but he was never one to make enemies. Derek and Tom exchanged looks, and then Tara turned to Tom and informed him, "We have evidence to believe that Kyle's death wasn't just some random murder." Wouldn't it be more surprising if that was the case? If that if he actually was uh what okay okay, it's coming off as a surprise that someone deliberately killed him, but he just said above that he's not the type to make enemies. So if it was a random murder, that would be less surprising because Tom has been like he's not that bad a guy who would want to kill him as like some kid serial killer. To me that would be a little bit more. I don't know. Tom looked at her. What? Derek pulled a folder from his coat and handed it to Tom, who quickly took it and opened it up to see its content as Derek spoke. Over the last couple of months, numerous bizarre deaths have been happening, not just in this city, but in neighboring communities as well. They've all had the same thing. Homes left unattended, computers broken in the same way, and the bodies. Tom felt his insides turn as he saw the photos. All of them had the same way as Kyle. Pale eyes, white in horror, jaw snapped off, blood staining the inside of their mouths. Sarah then spoke up. We checked the autopsies, and they all said the same thing. The esophagus and the inside of the chest were completely ruptured, like something large being forced. It's forced way down the victims' throats. Wait, what? We checked the autopsies. They all said the same thing. The esophagus and the inside of the chest were completely ruptured, like something large forced its way down the victims' throats. Okay, it's canonical that uh, this character, and I say canonical, I roll my eyes when I say that, but JC Hyena has gone on record by saying that Sonic.Exe is bisexual. So I'm not that surprised that he swings that way, but I'm just saying. You can't mix work with pleasure, bro. Either you kill them or you fuck them. You can't have both. I mean, you kill for fun, or you kill when you work, and then you fuck for your fun times. Mixing them both is not like it's not like chocolate and peanut butter. No. Damn, Sonic.exe must be fucking packing. Must be packing. Broke their jaw and just like made their chests explode. Like their throat is stretched out to the size of a bowling ball, and their jaw ripped off from trying to hold it. Choose your words carefully next time, JC. Sarah then spoke up. We checked the autopsies and saw the same thing. Okay, I already said that. Tom looked unsettled. I would be too. Unsettled by the sight of so many people being killed in such a gruesome manner. Who? Who would do this? Who could do this? Let me see. Ron Jeremy, Long Dong Silver, that gentleman in India whose dick is literally the size of a like this, like a fucking elongated Pringles can. It's so big. It's so big, in fact, that he can't actually get erection anymore. Those are people that I could assume would probably kill someone with their dick. I don't know. I need to get on third of clubs to investigate this a little bit more. He seems like someone would be more knowledgeable in these matters. We don't know, Derek replied, which is why we need your help. We need you to tell us if Kyle said anything before his 3 week absence. I I don't. Kyle stopped himself. He tried to think about it. Did Kyle say anything before he disappeared? He sat there trying to remember, and then it hit him. The last time Tom saw Kyle 3 weeks prior to the weekend party. 3 weeks 3 weeks prior was after a weekend party he threw with him and his friends. He asked Kyle if he wanted to watch a movie with him in his dorm room, but Kyle declined. He said he wanted to try this new video game he bought online. And that is the 10th chapter, or rather the 10th page. I am done. Okay, so what we've learned here is that Detective Green in this remake, the Green siblings, the detectives, are just as stupid as before, if not a little bit more so. They like taking completely random people to the crime scenes and traumatizing them for life for kicks. And Sonic.Exe kills people by shoving his massive cock down their throats. So, I mean, I say the story's improving. I mean, that last thing I mentioned, I would have never thought the story would take such a turn. Um, so yeah, if you enjoyed this video, do it. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Uh, I have a lot to think about now because this video has got just giving me a lot to just really reflect on in terms of the human body and whether or not it is indeed possible to swallow a giant mushroom head, a watermelon-sized mushroom head. Okay, everyone, take care.